Welcome back to What's New with Mead. This is episode number 50, and I have two very familiar faces to the channel and to my life, and probably yours as well. With me, I have FaeWood Mead, also known as Mandy in her normal life, and doing the most, who's BC. They both have YouTube channels, and they both, coincidentally, also were a major part of Mead Stampede this year because they were my co-hosts. So we're going to chat about Mead Stampede this year, next year, 10 years from now, everything from there. But yeah, glad to get to sit down and chat with you guys.
Should we spend 45 minutes talking about what we're drinking first, or
yeah, and
skip right on?
I was gonna say, can we go around the horn real fast and I'll say the oh man. So let's start off first by talking about Mead Stampede as year two. Obviously, Mandy, you can't speak to year one, but I'm going to throw this to BC. Can you give the people a quick rundown of what Mead Stampede is for SBC?
The people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Mead Stampede kind of launched out of our Discord communities last year. There was this idea kicking around that it would be fun to have a mead competition that was built from the online mead community, specifically the communities of Man-Made Mead and Doing the Most. And this guy, Nicholas, was real adamant that this was a great idea and we should do it. And he wanted to put together a team. And so we brought in some others into our committee and we created a mead competition. And we had some like 140 bottles or 140 entries or so our first year last year. And it was relatively successful for a first year competition. We decided to do it again. We decided we'd also invite Mandy to come be a part of the spokesperson crew on our committee. And we just had Mead Stampede number 2 and we grew by about 50%. So really excellent growth. It's a beginner friendly competition. We make sure we give really holistic feedback on the meads, so that way you're not just coming away with a score, you're coming away with stuff that you can work on, notes about things that were really excellent, and hopefully something constructive to build from. And I think we've got a great team. We had a great team of additional judges that came in this year to help out, and I only see great things going forward.
Yeah, so this was year 2 for BC and I. Mandy, what's one thing you really learned from your first year of Mead Stampede? I'm saying first year because I feel like this is the start of something big for all of us, but especially being your first year, what'd you get from it?
Oh man, it's difficult to put into words how much I learned. Like I kind of just came back and I was like, people ask me, "Oh, how was Mead Stampede? How was it?" And I'm just like, this is the only thing I can describe is my head exploding. It was really, it was really fantastic. Tasting such a variety of meads. And I loved bouncing off of like the other judges who I was partnered up with and really getting into the analytical side of mead tasting, I think was just a whole other experience. It was just really fun. Like the whole thing was a great vibe, and I love trying everyone's meads. Yeah, there's a lot. It was great. I loved it.
I think BC and I talked about it, but we didn't have any this year that were just like atrociously insane. And I feel like you dodged a little bit of a bullet because like last year, I mean, there were numerous, there's nothing against these people, but there are numerous that we tasted and really had to take a moment to come back from.
Oh boy.
So it was I feel like you didn't get to experience any of that this year, which is a good thing, but it's also part of the fun. So last year, BC, you can talk about this now. We had some very interesting meads come across our table. And they were, now they live in infamy essentially in the in our little community, which is fun. But Mandy did not have to experience as many of those. So that was kind of a bullet dodged for her.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The one that comes to mind was there's one that had, I think we finally figured out it was lavender, but it was like a baby diaper lavender mess something, and that one will forever be immortalized.
Yeah, there were a few that I think some of the judges in year one were having some kind of outsized reaction to. I don't know that they were necessarily as awful as the reaction made it out to be. Now that diapery, powdery lavender one was pretty difficult to be around. I will say that. Like, it was almost like the thing was like actively pushing smell out of the bottle and you couldn't get away from it. I think the most offensive one though was the one that was made with like crawfish boil.
Oh,
wait, what?
yeah.
Remember this one?
Uh-huh.
It was made with like Zatarans or something, or Old Bay.
Oh,
It was like just like drinking salty, sugary seawater.
Oh God.
Not one of my favorites.
yeah. So aren't you glad you didn't have to experience that, Mandy? That was quite the time.
That's an
I think the
experience.
mead makers really improved this year. And
Yes.
there were a lot of the same names on the list, so I feel like what we saw was real like upward growth in skill and execution this year compared to year one.
Yeah. And that's the big thing I noted too, is with the similar names, and of course seeing them in our Discords and YouTube comments and stuff, commenting, seeing those same people submit year two, or even this time for their first time, the quality of meads they're producing is awesome. And I love seeing those. Yes, I do love when people who are notable mead bankers submit stuff, but I don't know that it's as fun to see. It's like, I know if Ken Schramm submitted something to our competition, I know it's going to be good. Okay, great. I want to have Joe, who's, he's on his 12th mead and he's been trying to consume all of the information he can, and this is what he's done with it. Like, that is the coolest thing for me, and that's what I love most about our competition is, like BC said, it's beginner friendly. It's not one that's we're not here to just give you a number and then walk away. We're trying to help you get better, even if it's already great. I feel like there are some meats that still came across our table that were like superb, excellent, and we could still give feedback, even to say, because of the quality of judges we had, hey, here's the one thing I want more of that would take it from a 44 to a 46, and you're not going to get that with a lot of competitions. I know BC just recently entered a competition and got some feedback too. And I was reading through the notes from my submissions, and there wasn't a lot of feedback to get better. And the meads I submitted did not score 50s. So I was hoping to see something from them, but I think it's unique to us. We hopefully are making people better by giving feedback. So at least, yeah, I don't know, BC, maybe you can speak to it. I didn't have any notes that were like, try this next time.
Yeah, I had minor notes on what the judges were looking for, if there were to be something more in them. However, on my sheets, and I think on most of the ones that I looked at, the notes from the judges were limited to maybe one or two sentences, whereas our score sheets typically are full of writing. There's, we're filling up all of the lines that are available, and I think it's becoming clear to me that that's fairly unique about our competition compared to others that provide score sheets with feedback. And so it's a great opportunity for folks, especially, if you've got something where you're like, I just don't know what this needs. Like, I love this recipe. I've done it a couple times, but it's lacking something. Send it to us, because our judges will probably be able to identify something that they may tweak here and there in the balance realm to dial it in.
Yeah. Mandy kind of spoke to, I'm going to say, the chaos of it. When you have so much going on and you got to quickly go through meads. one thing that I found difficult with this year, and I think it's just in general with judging, is when you are going so fast, trying to make sure that you are still giving enough time to really reflect on a mead and really sit there and go, not just like drink it and go, oh, that's good, numbers, walk away, but to like really assess. And it's challenging. And it's pretty mentally taxing too. I think all of us by the end of the first day of judging, we're like, all right, I think I need a nap. I don't know how you guys feel, but that's how I felt.
Yeah. Definitely. I was ready to lay down after day 1, day 2, even more. Because it was just a lot to experience and process. I mean, it's crazy. I just like in my brain, like the amount of work that my brain did, it was like going to school, but like in tests, like really intense, like testing kind of, and you're just like blown out. That's how I felt at the end. So I felt like at the live stream, like when we did the awards ceremony rather, I was just like, yeah, hey man, like so like blown out of here. Yeah, that was my experience.
Yeah, you get about 2/3 into a full day of judging, and not only are you kind of mentally exhausted and like socially exhausted, but your palate is just wrecked. Mm-hmm. And so that you have to take more time, more water breaks, eat more crackers to make sure that you're giving the right amount of attention that you would have at the beginning of your day, And so, yeah, the first day is hard. The second day, you're kind of in the swing of it, but you're also like, second day, I felt like everybody was a little bit on cruise control. Like we're taste, notes, oyster crackers, water, taste, notes, like beep, beep, boop. Yeah. Get it done.
Right. But day two,
it's a lot.
Day 2, we didn't have as much regular judging, I'll say. We blew through about, I think it was like 70% of our first round judging on day 1. Day 2 was we had the last 30% and then all of the best of shows. And that one was, I feel like, a little bit easier for everybody because we specifically said these people are going to take this best of show, these people are going to do this, these people are going to do this, and we like we're able to break it down. And best of shows are hard because you have to really be nitpicky, but they're also easy because it's only 5 or 6 meads, generally speaking. So I enjoyed the ease of that. Speaking of our best of show side, I feel like the quality at which we can speak to this because we were the ones for the best of show overall. Those meads at the top were, I mean, spectacular. Just seeing the quality coming out, and we kind of talked about first time mead makers, people who don't have a lot of experience. I do want to say, so TK, who's TK and Drinks on YouTube, he submitted his, I think, second mead ever. And he was actually ended up winning a gold for his Manuka traditional. It was a sweet Manuka traditional. And I recall tasting that one in the best of show going, dang, this one's really good. And that's like a highlight of, I think, the mead community growing and the education side growing. And when you listen to the right sources that are teaching you the right things, you're going to have hopefully a better quality come out of this. So I was super impressed by that. I don't know how you guys felt, but when I saw it was his mead, I was like, dang, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That happened with Zangmeister last year too. Our guy who was best of show. It was his first ever mead, and that's the one I ended up making. And I think that goes to show good research, quality honey, especially quality honey, and a good process can take you a long ways. I think a lot of people believe that the recipe that you have to have all this experience and all of this wisdom to make it an amazing mead. And really it's just having the right Legos to start with to get you going, in my opinion.
Yeah, and hitting the right judges.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
I mean, it is, winning or medaling in a competition is definitely partially up to skill and execution. It's partially up to the quality of ingredients and process, and it's a lot up to the flavor and palate preferences of the person who's scoring your mead.
Yeah.
A good example is one of our community members submitted a mead, and Carlos and I judged it. Carlos from Texas Longhouse Mead. And Carlos and I had vastly different opinions on the quality and flavor and aroma of this mead. And so this mead didn't advance on, but it also recently won best of show in a big national competition. So whoever you get as your judge, it's a little bit like rolling the dice, buying a scratch off ticket.
That is a good point to bring up. Sometimes we look at the feedback from any competition, and let's say someone comes back with lots of negative feedback towards it. They hated it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it is not great. What I think the ultimate test of a mead's quality is if you send it off to multiple people or multiple competitions, and you have lots of voices or opinions. So I say that because I feel like we probably also ripped up some people's meads who maybe they gave it to someone else and they loved it and they said it was the best thing ever. I would say go give your mead to multiple people and then take the cumulative feedback from all of it and use that as your guide rather than just focusing on the one person, because that will only make you a little bit sad if you're only listening to negative feedback.
Yeah, that's wise, honestly. Very wise.
Okay, so for next year, let's go and talk a little bit about 2023, which is, I almost blanked on the year because that it doesn't seem like we're already we're almost to the end of 2022. So next year, what are some things that we might want to see different? Is there anything that you guys, as you're going through this process, as you're going through either categories or something, is there something you would see different, for better or for worse? Not for worse, obviously. Don't change things for worse, but let's make it worse.
I'd like to still see more braggot and historical next year.
Yeah.
I feel like I harped on that after last year's competition, and we still didn't get a ton of them this year. And I think braggot is a really fun sandbox to play in, and I feel like not enough people are playing in that, especially at the competition level.
Mandy, what do you think?
I'm like, No, I do agree with that. Honestly, like beer, it's so vast. I mean, you've got all these different types of hops and grains and braggots. It really is like an underappreciated, sort of undertapped market. Historicals, I mean, there are some really great historical recipes out there. And there's a lot of historical recipes that people could play with. Yeah, there were definitely some, what am I thinking? Styles. I wanted to say departments. What are some departments? I don't know, my brain. There are some styles that that I wish were filled out a little bit more because they had to get like crunched in. And honestly, it's difficult judging different, like a braggot and a piment. I don't think they weren't combined, but
braggot and historical were. And so you're judging, and this, which also happened at Orpheus Cup, where you're judging a braggot against a tej against, whatever else. And so, yeah, if there were more in each of those categories, we could break them out into their individual judging categories too.
Yeah, it'd be more of a fair fight that way, I think.
I think another thing that I would like to see next year is all of the judging being completed in a single day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think it would be nice to have many more entries than we had this year, but also have many more judges than we had this year, so we could get it all done in a day.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of folks are coming in from out of town, and if we do an in-person award ceremony next year, probably quite a few more people are going to come in from out of town. And it would be nice to really silo that judging as its own little event.
Mhm.
And then all the extracurricular bottle sharing and drinking and brewery visiting and barbecue eating can all happen outside of the judging hours, because I think it did put a little bit of a damper on our ability to socialize with all our internet friends, since we had to focus on the serious business 2 days straight.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of I don't think people understand that side of it. They just think, oh, you just sat around and judged me, and that's all that matters. In reality, yes, that matters, but there's a lot of community that has been built on, especially this competition, if not Discords and everything. So getting to bottle share with people and just sit around and chat is like super cool. And I did feel like we were rushed in that regard. So maybe next year we can get a few more. We'll definitely need more judges if we grow more, but get more judges and have that ability, because it would be really nice to have an in-person event and be able to talk to people and not make it we're here for 2 hours and now we got to close it down because, you know, all these things. So I agree with you guys about the categories hopefully filling out. I feel like people are scared of historical meads because they're weirder generally. Most of them are not like your typical like recipe that just makes sense. It's like, oh, this has a bunch of weird ingredients or a weird process that is just not as easy to follow. So I would definitely love to see that category expanded out. As I would also like to see dry meads maybe make a bigger presence. I feel like, not that sweet meads are a bad thing, because please don't hear me say this, but I feel like so many people lean into just back sweetening a honey to make it better. In which, let's be real, honey and sugar make things taste a little bit better because it hides a lot of the flaws. So I would love to see the dry mead category really blow up, because I feel like that's where the challenges are the most difficult for people. I feel like most people don't want to go dry because you rely on your honey character, you rely on your process, and they're just not as easy. So that's what I want to see kind of expand. I want to see a really, I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. I want to see a dry traditional mead win best of show, either at our competition or at, you know, Mazer Cup or somewhere, because I think that would be probably the most impressive thing for me if that were to happen.
A totally dry traditional mead.
Yes, a dry traditional mead.
Hydrometer confirmed.
We need to take Chef's little thing in the just have that ready. So Mead Stampede 2023. We've already talked about kind of what we want to see different. What are some things that you like, as from the award show side, maybe just the overall process? We've talked about, you know, shortening our judging window and things, but what did you guys most enjoy? What part of the week did you most enjoy? And that's an interesting question.
That's tough. I enjoyed a lot of it. I don't know. What can I say? I mean, honestly, like the number one most enjoyable thing really was like socializing and getting to know everyone that's in the community, like the community. Put so many faces to names, and everyone was so friendly and supportive and just amazing. I'd say that was my number one. And then everything was good though. I mean, whether I was tasting,
every moment.
yeah, even if it was a bad mead, it was like a bonding experience still, because like, oh man, this mead, like what happened here? And then you just like bounce off each other, and it was just really cool, like really experiencing the community from its roots in mead form, I guess.
Mandy and I had one in our first flight that unfortunately, like, there some bacteria had gotten into the bottle or something. And this is like Mandy's like still really green at judging. Like we've been through like 3 or 4 meads at this point. So we have to have that like moment where we're like, all right, this one's really bad. And we're going to have to talk through this and power through this. And I feel like it was a little bit baptism by fire because it was like 9 o'clock in the morning and we're on this mead that tasted and smelled really awful. And we're having to like be like, I'm sorry, something happened here. And those little moments are kind of peppered throughout the weekend, which it kind of gives you like little surprises. It's like Easter eggs, little things to come upon in your weekend where you can have a little bonding moment, like Carlos and I arguing over that mead, and it wasn't like a heated debate. We were both very passionate in how we felt, but it like leads to a little bit of like enhanced camaraderie, which I think is always enjoyable.
It's hilarious.
The award show was we had our technical difficulties. The setup was a little bit, it was like kind of a lot. I think there are ways that we could probably simplify the awards show next year, and maybe that is not necessarily having the discussion as part of it. Maybe we do the awards show and then we kind of move to a discussion format afterward. I don't know. I've kind of wavered on what, because it was kind of also fun to have those contemplative discussions peppered throughout. So you asked about the award show. I don't know what I would do differently.
Well, I think that it was, that was a learning experience, especially because I was the one who's on the back end doing all the stuff. And I think I figured out a lot of it. It was like I've never done a 2-camera, something like that. So what would be ultimate great is if I hire a buddy to come out and him be the guy, and then that's not me having to run back and forth, because Mandy can attest. I was like changing cameras and like running around to fix the camera. And it was a little hectic, but a learning experience nonetheless. And
I did feel bad for you because I felt like you were wholly unable to enjoy like the afterglow moment of Mead Stampede because you're just tearing your hair out.
There was only one moment. There was only one moment, and nobody saw except for the people there, that like I tried to fix one camera, and then it just was like literally would not work, and I about walked out.
Yeah. And as you started walking away, I was like, oh, is he gonna like just go pound like a pint of beer and come back? Like, is this where we are?
Oh, that was a good moment. That was a fun memory for me right there. That was a good
The whole evening was fun.
Yeah.
A little chaos, some popping mics, grid lines over one of the cameras. It adds to the charm.
It was, there was a lot of charm, to say the least, for that award show. Well, let's talk about our specific challenge within the mead competition itself. We had what we call the cattle battle. So the cattle battle was I'm going to call it an in-tier competition, in that we had a specific set of ingredients that we told the audience, and we said, you need to use these. We're not telling you what ratios or a recipe, but you need to make it exactly like how ours tastes. And then we didn't tell them what ours tastes like. So at its face value, arguably a pretty cruel thing to do to people, but I was super impressed with the quality of meads that came out of that. And I was even more impressed that we had somebody who literally was like almost on the dot with ours, which I feel like is super obviously hard to do when you have no frame of reference for what's happening there. So what did you guys think about the cattle battle challenge this year?
It was fun. It was so varied in flavor profiles. It was really interesting. It was a very fun experience.
I feel like I definitely learned, especially because we use chai as part of it. I feel like I have a new appreciation for good chai tea, because I feel like we got a lot of people who might have bought very cheap versions of chai, which had different levels of spice. So we had one, I recall, that was like, I felt like I was eating a black licorice candy. I was just like sucking on that, and that was not enjoyable. And then there were some that had more, I don't even know all the spices in chai, but they were not heavy with that. So that was something I learned from that experience. BC, what'd you get?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of if I learned anything from the experience.
Or enjoyed.
You know, I guess one thing is that, like, maybe, sorry, there's a baby yelling outside the door.
It adds to the charm.
Something like that. Maybe this year we would want to disclose the cattle battle ingredients / challenge earlier.
Yeah.
So people have more time. So those meads have more time to age and mellow. So we have more time to produce it. We did give, it feels like on the surface of it, chai, pear, and vanilla is like that's a family. Like those are things that can play together really well. I do think balancing the three was more of a challenge than I anticipated that it would be. I think ours turned out really lovely, but it did need more sweetness, and it may have needed a little bit more tannin also. And it's hard to do also when you're under the gun of just a few months to brew it, clear it, finish it, bottle it. That's tough. And so I think it was a lot of fun. You guys got to judge these, so you can speak more to your experience with that. I was just there for the best of show on Cattle Battle, but the three that we had as the finalists were all vastly different meads. Like they were different points on the triangle of what chai, pear, and vanilla can be. Excuse me. And so it did make it easy for us to choose the winner, but it was interesting how you could have those three ingredients and make one so much more the star than the others, just based on your proportions and your process. It was an interesting challenge.
I really liked I liked that the challenge was what it was, and that was, it made people be creative. Obviously, if we just gave someone a recipe and said, make this and then make it good, and whoever makes it the best wins, like, okay, that's cool. But like, you're not going to have a lot of, I feel like this was a very palate heavy side of the competition, a lot of knowledge in that regard. And it just makes people think a little bit more. I think for next year, like you said, BC, giving people more time, especially if it's something that is a spice or is something that we know people are going to make 12% and above brews. If it was like hey, we're all going to make a session mead, session strength with these three ingredients, then yeah, they can churn it out in 2 or 3 months. But it's definitely something to consider for next year. And especially since we're already ahead in that regard, we have the idea. We just have to sit down one day and talk about it more and make a choice. And we could give people as much notice as they need. And I'm sure that the quality of things we'll see we will see be much better than this year. Not to say that there wasn't a lot of great stuff, but people were definitely constrained on their abilities and times. So
yeah, there were a lot of young meads. A lot of young meads where if they just had a little bit of extra time, and it was interesting how varied, we were talking about strengths, and it's like you had hydromel, standard, and sack. I mean, I tasted so many that just went the full range. And it's like, we went from pear heavy to chai heavy to like, I remember I had one that was more vanilla than anything. And then I had another one that tasted like chicken teriyaki. And it was so interesting how everyone took those ingredients and used them. It made it it made it very interesting to taste and judge. And you did really have to kind of like even as a judge, like pulling the flavor that like, you're looking for out was, I don't know how to finish that sentence.
Saw the ... at the end.
Yeah. No, it was really interesting how disparate they were in flavor and style, but even in color, like you get one that was like pale straw, and the next one's bright red and like murky. It's like, it's really interesting how varied those 17 bottles were.
Yeah, I don't know that I enjoyed going back and forth between like I said, Mandy, from hydromel to like sack strength, and then like if it was a totally different brew and they weren't doing the same thing, like I feel like it would have been easier. But going from those things made it a little bit weird at first. Still enjoyable. Overall, a great experience, and I think we've set ourselves up well for next year for what we're going to do. And obviously, as we get closer to next year, even maybe soon from now, we might be telling you guys, hey, here's what to expect. There's no promises, but we're probably going to have the conversation earlier than last year. So just be ready to watch out for that information so you can get that going if you'd like to be a part of it. We had 17 in total, I think, that's a pretty good amount. That's of all of our categories. We had a couple that were like 32, 33 submissions. I think Cattle Battle was probably 4th or 5th most submitted, right? I think. I don't recall. Do you remember, BC?
I'd have to go back and look, but I think it was one of our larger ones.
Yeah, which is, it's super cool. So I highly encourage you guys to be ready to jump on that if you want. There's a lot of fun stuff that will happen with that for next year. So
I know there are a lot of people pushing for specific challenges for Cattle Battle. I've heard the community is excited about a lactomel. I've heard that there's a contingent advocating that we do savory.
Yeah.
I was thinking that it could be fun to do like obviously give them like the ingredients, but a mead intended to be served warm.
Oh, like a mold?
Do
a mold mead?
Yeah, where we have to pop a couple mugs in the microwave every time we want to try it.
Oh, Kelly would hate us.
We'll have a microwave at everyone's table.
No, I like that challenge, especially like the idea of mold. I don't know if you guys have ever done a mold mead before, but it is a whole different brain structure to do it. Yeah. You can't just throw any mead and make it warm. It does not work that way. I think some people will just think, oh, I'll just heat it up and it'll be just as good or better. It does not work that way. So that could be fun.
Oh, it could be fun.
So let's talk about kind of a little bit of like a closing note for us, because we're obviously anticipating next year, and I'm excited for us to get there. I overall had a whole lot of fun with this. I do want to know if you, I guess, what was your, I don't know how to say this. I guess, what was your favorite mead that you remember from this weekend, from a couple weekends ago? I know that's a hard one. I can tell you mine while you guys are figuring that out, because I know I put you on the spot. There was one, I don't remember who it was by. I don't remember anything about it, but it was a hydromel strength mead that had some Indian spices in it that were like, I can't remember what they were, but it was just a super interesting play with spices I'd never heard of or seen, and they just had balanced it well. It was like super crushable. Now that one was my favorite. I wish I knew the spices. They were like weird names, so that's part of why I can't remember it at this point. But that one was pretty good.
Yeah, I had that one too. I think the third bottle of that was MIA. If I'm thinking of the same mead, I had it and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. and it was a bunch of spices that you couldn't recognize really. But it was beautiful how well they were balanced. That mead was amazing. I really enjoyed, remember there was like a black currant mead that I really liked that made it towards the end. But I don't know like who made it or any of the details.
We didn't really go backwards and like look at who made what at any point. Maybe for like the top few best of show, because I think it just kind of boiled down that way that we ended up seeing. So if we're describing your mead and we're not saying your name, it's not because we don't care. It's because we probably didn't see your name. So BC, do you have a memorable one? Most memorable one?
I think the most memorable and probably like my vote for underdog of the competition was there was a cucumber lime hydromel that just tasted like you were drinking like the juice from fermented like pickled peppers. Except it was sparkling and light and refreshing and delicate. And it was just, I don't like cucumbers. And so it didn't taste like cucumber. It tasted more like it had been pickled, but not like a vinegar. It's so hard to describe, but it was so unusual and interesting and refreshing. And like, it's, Garrett, you and I have made a lot of weird stuff. And it's rare that I have
normal stuff every time. I don't know what you're talking about.
Every time. Spin the wheel. But like, it's rare that I have a commercial brew of any kind, a beer, a mead, a wine, a seltzer, that really like sets off little sparks in my head. Because I've made and tried so many things, but this one just really had me going, that worked in a way that I would have never expected. Yeah. And it really inspired me as someone who loves to create recipes and do that rigorous work of refining. It really inspired me that like there's a whole world of like weird like pickly hydromels out there that I didn't know I wanted, and now I do.
I definitely feel that way about a lot of the things I tried. Like you said, there were combinations of ingredients that might have been, quote, abnormal, but they're only abnormal because we had never thought of it or never tried it. And so there's a lot of stuff I came out of Mead Stampede this year thinking, ooh, I want to go try this too. And I want to see if I can also get this combination to work. Or, if somebody tried to do it and it wasn't exactly what I thought, like, oh, maybe I want to try this side. So there are a lot of flavor combinations there I feel inspired by. So I'm excited for that. It's definitely got my gears spinning for what I'm going to do in the future. So, all right, I'm going to close this out by saying this. The people, if you're listening to this on the podcast, not seeing us right now, you can't see them, but we have Doing the Most and FaeWood Mead, who are both mead making YouTubers. Doing the Most does a lot of also extra non-mead content. So if you're looking into not just mead content, go check him out. Both are prominent YouTubers who are making great content to make us better. And I absolutely believe that because they are taking the time to put out quality content and teach people the right things, that is why we saw such an uptick of great meads come out of this year. And I can promise you, if you go check them out and follow their advice, and you enter some competitions this next year, you will be more successful than if you just try and fly on your own. So go and get some sage advice from people like us who have made arguably too much mead for our own good. And, and hopefully you will join us for Mead Stampede 2023. If you aren't already brewing things for it, now's the time to start. So yeah, thank you guys for spending your time and obviously being such big and important parts of Mead Stampede. I'm super excited for next year.
Me too. Oh, I'm so excited.
It's going to be good. I think we're going to experience huge growth.
Yeah. And I mean, so just for people to understand, Mazer Cup takes 500 entries. We didn't have a cap this year. We had 200. I do believe that as our competition continues to grow, it's going to get obviously bigger. We'll have to eventually cap it for entries, but get on in while you can, because I think you'll want to be a part of it for multiple years. And then, who knows, you might win multiple years in a row. And wouldn't that be cool to have your own little Mead Stampede award to celebrate? So thank you guys. Go check out in the description of this video or whatever podcast thing you're listening to. There will be the links for FaeWood Mead and Doing the Most. And I hope you'll check them out. Go and subscribe and be a part of the conversations. I know that Doing the Most has a Discord where if you are someone who really likes to chat about mead and your wife doesn't want to talk to you about it, hop on into the Discord, and you can find lots of people who really want to talk about mead making with you and want to get better with you. Hop on into his Discord or my Discord. Maybe Mandy will eventually do a Discord too, but regardless,
Mandy does have YouTube memberships and Patreon now, so you should go support her channel.
I didn't know that. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. Make sure you go down there and click those. That is a very important part of surviving on YouTube, especially in the mead making world, are those people. So I know I appreciate mine. BC appreciates his. Mandy's
very much.
You guys need to all go hop on and help her out too, because we all need the help in our world right now. So, all right, guys, that's it until 2023.
Yeah, I'll talk to you guys next year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cheers.
Bye.